Hey everyone, it's George from Blockchain DXB and today is the 1st of November 2022 and we are just 2 months away for the end of 2022 and to be honest, it has been if not one of the worst years for Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies and particularly DeFi. And in today's episode, we're also very briefly going to talk about the volume of DeFi, which is ridiculously low and down to $3.23 billion. And as a matter of fact, the volume of DeFi accounts for only 3.23% of the total crypto market 24-hour volume. And in today's episode, we're very briefly going to discuss a massive news from India. And India is actually launching, or rather has launched, its central bank digital currency project. Now this CBDC is more to do with wholesale CBDCs. So we are very briefly going to talk about what the Reserve Bank of India has done in piloting its central bank digital currencies, which has to do with wholesale CBDCs, and they're also planning to launch a retail CBDCs. And retail CBDCs will have a massive impact on consumers like you and me and quite a lot of other. So we'll very briefly talk about that. Now in today's episode, we're also going to very briefly talk about some technical information by Glassnode and CoinShares, and looks like investor apathy does continue heading towards the month of November as well. In today's episode, we're also going to be talking about a massive news from Bitcoin.com, and they have launched a new project called as Verse, and we're going to be discussing how it's going to be rewarding participants who are buying, selling, storing, and using cryptocurrencies and quite a lot more. And regarding UAE, we have two news as well, and both the news has to do with Blockchain DXB. And one thing which I did mention in the previous week as well is a Bitcoin beginner's guide, so I'm just very briefly going to run through what the session is all about. And I do have a session on the 17th of November called Central Bank Digital Currency, and we're going to be discussing the basics, threats to freedom and its role in the Metaverse. Now look guys, if you do want to sponsor the event, because quite a lot of people have registered for this session, drop me an email to info@blockchaindxb.com. So let's kickstart today's episode. So welcome everyone, it's 18 you're in Dubai and you're listening to Crypto and Coffee at 8, where we cover top news and information pertaining to Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi and Metaverse. And of this series of episodes in the Crypto and Coffee at 8 works is, we usually cover some top news and information pertaining to the price of cryptocurrencies, some major breaking news, occasionally short and sweet news as well, news that has an impact in the cryptocurrency world. The other two news and information is related to Dubai, UAE and Middle East in the world of Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi and Metaverse. And this is followed by Ask Me Anything series, where you listeners can ask any questions from the cryptocurrency world. And guys, every Fridays I do have an episode called Metaverse Everything, where we solely focus on Metaverse, so please check out those episodes as well. The format for Metaverse Everything podcast is completely different, and I tend to publish a daily and weekly report via my LinkedIn, so please follow me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn profile is in the show notes below. Now before we kickstart today's episode, I have an important message, so check this out. Firstly guys, Startup OI is global one tech platform for tech. It offers global high-paying tech jobs with flexibility in working time and location, global free tech events, and tech networks to connect with global like-minded engineers. A brilliant platform to listen to the tech experts in Metaverse and to grab their insights. Now listen, all you have to do is download the app Startup OI. If you're using an Android version, go to Google Store and App Store for iOS devices. Alternatively, you can also click on the show notes below to download Startup OI. Next, the 10th edition of the world-renowned flagship that is Global Blockchain Congress by Agora Group is taking place on November 23rd and 24th at Sofitel Dubai The Palm, and there will be more than 60 speakers, 150 investors, 30 sponsors, and these sponsors offer Metaverse, gaming, NFTs, and DeFi projects looking to raise funds, 20 media partners, and more than 300 delegates. So listen guys, if you're a blockchain startup looking to raise funds, join Agora on this special edition on the Global Blockchain Congress and have a one-to-one meeting with pre-qualified investors. And this edition's main themes are digital assets regulations in the GCC, Web3 platforms, Metaverse, gaming and NFTs. Now remember guys, the spots are limited, so register online via the link in the show notes below, or go to Agora's LinkedIn page, or go to the website. All the details are in the show notes below. Next, guys, listen, if you're into fitness, if you're into adventure, if you want to do something wild but still want to keep your health in check, there is a new podcast in town, a podcast focusing on obstacle course race in the Middle East. The podcast is called Rise in the Obstacle Course Race. And Rise in the Obstacle Course Race podcast is a peer-to-peer community-driven podcast where they talk all about obstacle course race in the Middle East, from Sandstorm to Spartan Race, from Tough Mudder to Desert Warrior Challenge, and also the Government Gov Games, and quite a lot more. The podcast has interviews with athletes locally and internationally to get inside scoop on how athletes prepare for obstacle course race. In the podcast, they also talk about interesting stories on why they are motivated to do obstacle course race. And that's not all. They also plan to release 7 NFTs. And these NFTs are no ordinary. These NFTs will represent every emirate in the UAE. And listen guys, these NFTs are going to be absolutely massive. So do one thing, go to Spotify, go to iTunes, go to any leading podcasting platform and search for Rise in the Obstacle Course Race podcast. And finally guys, not your keys, not your crypto. If you have dabbled with cryptocurrencies and now are seriously getting to protect your cryptocurrencies, there is no better way to protect it by using a hardware wallet. And this is where Ledger Wallet kicks in. And Ledger Wallets are hardware cryptocurrency wallets made by Ledger, a company headquartered in Paris, France. And Ledger's hardware wallets are multi-currency wallets that are used to store private keys for cryptocurrencies offline. And Ledger offers 2 hardware wallets, the Ledger Nano and Ledger Nano X wallets. They are world-class experts with extensive crypto security backgrounds. They continuously look for vulnerabilities in Ledger products in a constant effort to improve the level of security. Now, in today's world, securing these digital assets is a critical challenge, and this is where Ledger kicks in. So click the link below to buy your hardware wallet and support this podcast. It is a brilliant way to support this podcast. So what are you waiting for? The link is in the show notes below. Now guys, since we've taken care of that, let's look at the price of the global crypto market. Now to be honest, there are just 7 days left for midterm elections in US, and I'm really curious to see what the impact that will have post-election on the price of Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and the overall global crypto market. Now as of today, the 1st of November, the global crypto market is still a little above the $1 trillion mark, and it is currently at $1.01 trillion. And since the last 24 hours, it is marginally up by 0.17%. But last week and this week, the massive news is about Dogecoin, and looks like Dogecoin is definitely heading towards the moon. Now in yesterday's episode guys, I did talk about Elon Musk, and what he plans to do is he wants to have a subscription service. Now I was under the assumption that the subscription service would be roughly around $3 or so, and that $3 worth of equivalent funds will be accepted using Dogecoin, which means, let's say if you're someone living in Zimbabwe or in Southern African region where the value of $3 is really high, based on the value of $3 in that region, an equivalent amount will be paid via Dogecoin, but looks like the subscription amount will not be $3 and $20. Now if that happens, I really am not sure if Dogecoin will be used as a medium of payment, but it could also be possible that Dogecoin can still be accepted to pay for transaction fees, and if that happens, I do think that would definitely pump the price of Dogecoin even further, but we'll just have to wait and see. Now the global crypto market volume over the last 24 hours is at $79.01 billion, and since the last 24 hours it is down by 4.35%. The total volume in DeFi is currently at $3.23 billion, and as of today, 1st of November, the total value locked is $54.51 billion, with MakerDAO accounting for 14.72%. And guys, I really am not sure if I mentioned this in my podcast in the past. If you do want to learn everything about MakerDAO, Laura Shin did have an excellent podcast. I believe it was going back to 2018 or 19. Do go ahead and listen to that. It'll just give you a full understanding of what the MakerDAO protocol is, and then you can compare it to what it is doing in 2022. Now MakerDAO accounts for 14.72% and has $8.02 billion locked in MakerDAO protocol. And last week we talked about how MakerDAO is having a partnership with Coinbase and how USDC is also kind of connected to it. Now as of today, the volume of DeFi is ridiculously low and down to 3.23%. And to be honest guys, I really am not sure what the future of DeFi is going to be. Because when you look at central bank digital currencies, they are having a massive impact in the retail world, in the wholesale world, and in the multiple central bank digital currency world as well. So on the session that I have on the 17th of November, I'll try to explore that in detail, and I'll also try to compare it, how it is going to have an impact in the DeFi world as well. Now let's look at the volume of stable coins. The volume of stable coins is down to $72.25 billion, and out of the $72.25 billion, Tether USDT seems to be an outlier with $60.39 billion, and USDC accounts for $3.80 billion, and Binance USD is at $7.30 billion. So the big question is, let's say 3 to 5 years down the line, when central bank digital currencies do go mainstream, will there be actual use case of stable coins? What are your thoughts? Mention them in the comments below. Now the percentage of stable coins has been going down since the last few days, which I think is absolutely great. That being said, it still accounts for 91.44% of the total crypto market 24-hour volume. Ideally, I'm trying to look at the number between 60 to 65%. I really am not sure when that thing would happen. Now let's look at the market cap of NFT platforms, and Flow is currently at $1.70 billion. Now since the last 24 hours though, it is down by 2%, and ApeCoin is also down exactly by 2% with a market cap of $1.45 billion, and Sandbox is at $1.33 billion, and it is down by 0.04%. Now guys, let's quickly look at the market share, 24-hour trading volume and dominance between Bitcoin and Ethereum. And guys, I've been looking at this data ever since the Ethereum merge. As a matter of fact, I just started doing this 2 weeks before the Ethereum merge was announced. Now personally, I've been tracking this data well before 2017. Since 2017, personally, I used to always look at the market share and the 24-hour trading volume on a daily basis. But let's try to see if Ethereum does actually flip Bitcoin. Now as of today, Ethereum's market share is almost 50% of that of Bitcoin's market share. As a matter of fact, it is marginally above the 50% mark of Bitcoin's market share. So Ethereum's market share is at $193 billion, whereas Bitcoin's market share is $393 billion. And if you look at the 24-hour trading volume, Bitcoin's 24-hour trading volume is at $41.75 billion, and Ethereum's 24-hour trading volume is $15.99 billion. Now, when we look at the technical analysis, CoinShares did mention about the 24-hour trading volume of Bitcoin, so we'll be looking at that once again. Now, if you look at the dominance, Bitcoin's dominance has gone down and it is currently at 38.70%, whereas Ethereum's dominance is at 19%. Now, this week, guys, I'm also looking at the market cap of privacy coins, because a lot of the OGs in the space do actually like Monero. I really am not sure what their thoughts are regarding other privacy coins such as Zcash, Harmony, and quite a lot of other. But only this week I'm going to be discussing just the market cap. It just gives an idea of how privacy coins are doing. Now Monero is still a massive outlier with $273 billion as its market cap, and Zcash is less than half of Monero's market cap, and it is currently at $787 million. Decred is only at $390 million, and Harmony is at $239 million. And the final and the fifth one is Horizon, and its market cap is at $171 million. Now guys, if you're into privacy, I definitely do think you need to check out what Monero is doing. And one thing which I did mention in yesterday's podcast as well, Monero is everything that Bitcoin intended to be. And that being said, guys, Monero is not perfect. And one of the biggest drawbacks with privacy coin is that a state can always put severe restrictions on cryptocurrency exchanges and could delist them. As a matter of fact, in Dubai, I know for a fact that a lot of cryptocurrency exchanges used to have Monero, and this is going back to early 2016 and 17. But since I believe 2018, a lot of the cryptocurrency exchanges have delisted Monero and possibly other privacy coins as well. So one of the dangers with privacy coins is that the state can put severe restrictions on cryptocurrency exchanges to delist them from the platform. Now guys, let's look at the king of all kings, that is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is currently at $20,450, and since the last 24 hours it is marginally down by 0.04%, but since the last 7 days it is up by 3.40%. I'm really curious to see what happens to the price of Bitcoin after November 8th. Now, since midterm election is taking place, I'm pretty much sure cryptocurrencies will be the talk of the elections, and it's going to be really interesting to see if the price do go up or if it goes down. What are your thoughts? Mention them in the comments below. Now, if you look at the price of Ethereum, it is steady at $1,575. As a matter of fact, since the last 24 hours, it is marginally up by 0.01%. Since the last 7 days, though, it is up by 11.98%. Now, if you look at Binance Coin, which did reach a new all-time high, it is currently down to $319. And since the last 24 hours, it is marginally down by 1.82%. And since the last 7 days, it is up by 13.89%. Now, guys, the massive news that is going on in the central bank digital currency world is all the way from India. And the Reserve Bank of India did actually pilot a central bank digital currency. Now listen guys, I do think when you talk about India, India does have a love-hate relationship, and mostly a hate relationship with cryptocurrencies. But what they have done is they have piloted central bank digital currencies. Now there are different types of central bank digital currencies. You have retail CBDC, you have wholesale CBDC, and you have multiple CBDCs as well. But the one that Reserve Bank has piloted is more to do with wholesale bank. And this is where all the banks will be affected, not an average day-to-day consumer or average citizens. So India's love-hate relationship does continue with cryptocurrencies, but it has launched its first digital rupee pilot, and 9 banks are identified as participants in this pilot project. So there's Bank of India, Bank of Baroda, Union Bank of India, HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank, Yes Bank, IDFC FIRST Bank, and HSBC. Now, I really am not sure what to make of it, because when you talk about central bank digital currencies, it does solve a lot of potential problems, but at what cost? At the cost of centralization. And the fact that there are 9 banks involved does actually state that there is a very high degree of centralization. Now, what I would really recommend you to do is go to the Twitter account of Reserve Bank of India, and they have released an official document, which to be honest is just a 1-page document, and it does give crystal clear information. And the article actually mentions that the first pilot in digital rupee, also called as ER, that is retail CBDCs, will be launched later this month in selected locations and in closed user groups comprising customers and merchants. So India is definitely making its headway. So far as central bank digital currencies is concerned, they have already piloted wholesale bank CBDCs, and later in the month, they will be piloting retail central bank digital currencies. Now, personally, I'm not at all a fan of retail central bank digital currency. Now, listen, guys, if you are someone who thinks that this is a brilliant move, you're severely mistaken, because there is a massive difference between central bank digital currency and in Bitcoin. I do think that India is taking a terrible decision, and so far as digitization is concerned, so far as cryptocurrency is concerned, this move is actually taking India one step behind, while other countries are taking 10 steps ahead. Now listen guys, we at Blockchain DXB, we do have a session later in the month called as Central Bank Digital Currencies, where we talk about the basics, the threats to freedom, and its role in the Metaverse. And I will be sharing some crucial information on the different types of CBDCs. So we have retail CBDC, wholesale CBDC, and multiple CBDC. And what India has done is they have piloted the wholesale central bank digital currencies. Now, wholesale CBDCs will be having a massive impact for banking institutions, and quite a lot of other. But it would have been ideal that they could have used Bitcoin as a settlement layer. That would have been taking 10 steps ahead in comparison to other countries. But I really am not sure what the say in India is so far as politics is concerned. Now, I know for a fact that the Central Bank of India, or the Reserve Bank of India, is against cryptocurrencies. The Supreme Court, on the other hand, is in favor of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. That's one of the reasons why I often say is politics and politicians do have a massive impact on the trajectory and the direction of Bitcoin and open cryptocurrencies. Now, in the session that I have on the 17th of November, I will explain the retail central bank digital currency. I will also explain wholesale CBDCs, and I will also explain what multiple CBDC is. And last week, guys, I did talk about multiple central bank digital currencies that also went live, and the Central Bank of UAE is part of the multiple CBDCs. As a matter of fact, there are 5 banks from UAE that are also participating in central bank digital currencies. Now, the news that I have regarding UAE, I will touch base about what are the talks that I'll be talking on the 17th of November. So stay tuned and listen to that part as well. Now, guys, let's talk about some technical news that happened last week. And every Mondays, Glassnodes and CoinShares, they tend to provide a weekly insight and a weekly blog that does give a snapshot of what has happened in last week. Now, if you're into charts and graphs, I would definitely recommend you to go ahead and check Glassnodes, because the weekly insight analyzes how Bitcoin may be hammering out a near textbook bear market floor and what risks may lay on the road ahead. And if you're into charts and graphs and if you're a technical nerd, they do have a paid subscription as well, so go in for that. Now, CoinShares, they also tend to provide a weekly blog, and they actually state that the investor apathy continues with inflows of $6.1 million, but the trading volume so far as Bitcoin is concerned is almost doubled. Now, what I tend to do is I tend to track this on a daily basis, and I definitely echo the same message that CoinShares has mentioned via the Medium blog. Now, the article that CoinShares has published does actually mention that US and Germany were the only countries to see inflows, which totaled $13 million and $3.3 million respectively. And Brazil, Canada, Sweden, and Switzerland saw outflows of $10 million in aggregate. So definitely useful information. Now, guys, the final news that we talk about is about Bitcoin.com. And if you have actually gone to Bitcoin.com for at least for the past few months, you would have seen a pop-up which kept on saying Verse. Now, officially, they have launched Verse. And looks like Verse is a DEX project by Bitcoin.com, that is decentralized exchange. And they have announced that they are officially entering the public sale of Verse. Now, Verse will reward participants for buying, selling, storing, using, and learning about cryptocurrencies. So go to the website, getverse.com. It does provide some real useful information. And if you're an investor trying to get into the cryptocurrency space, I think it is a brilliant protocol. But that being said, definitely not investment advice. Now, what Verse wants to do is they want to support those who are seeking accessible onboarding investment into Bitcoin and DeFi and quite a lot more. And guys, these projects, when they are building things when the market is down or during the bearish market, is absolutely fantastic. So being an early adopter, such protocols do tend to pay extremely heavily. Now, guys, let's talk about 2 news regarding UAE. But before we move on to 2 crypto and blockchain news regarding UAE, I have 2 news regarding obstacle course race in UAE. The first news is about Spartan Race, and they have a massive event in December, the World Championship. And this is the second time they have the World Championship event in Abu Dhabi. And guys, I have a standalone episode with Spartan Race founder Joe Cena talking about Spartan Race NFT. And Sean, who's the Chief Technology Officer, was also in the podcast. And Calvin, who's one of the OGs in the NFT space, was at the podcast as well. So we discussed from a business point of view, why did Spartan Race decide to go ahead and launch its NFT, what were the challenges, and quite a lot more. So please check out those episodes. It is a standalone episode talking more about NFTs and not so much regarding obstacle course race. And the second message is also about obstacle course race and my favorite one, that is Tough Mudder. And listen guys, I'm on a mission to do my 100th Tough Mudder, so check both the messages now. The first message is from Spartan. Now Spartan is a global fitness brand with 10 million strong community. They create transformational events, experiences, products and content to help people, companies and teams tear down boundaries and expand what they believe to be possible. From day one, nearly 2 decades ago, they've been champions of human transformation, and they live to help people get outside, eat healthy, and develop habits that lead to a life of constant progress. With families of brands, they push people from every corner of the globe outside the comfort zone and immerse them in a world of tough fitness and elite sports. Now, they do this because you can face and overcome adversity head on, and your potential is limitless. Now, this year in December, in Abu Dhabi, the land of Gazelle, thousands of athletes and spectators will gather at the metropolis in the desert to compete for Spartan immortality. This is a unique opportunity to watch the world's best obstacle course race athletes compete for world championship and have your group conquer the course themselves. The massive event takes place from the 2nd till the 4th of December this year. Now for Spartan World Championship, the ticket details and registration to the programs are mentioned in the links below. Now if you are into running, if you are into adventure, and if you are in UAE, you definitely need to check this out. And the second news, guys, is about Tough Mudder. Now listen, guys, there are 3 things that I'm extremely passionate about. All 3 of them have some kind of similarity. That is heavy metal, Bitcoin, and obstacle course race. Now we've looked at the premier obstacle course race event, that is Spartan Race, which is taking place between the 2nd and 4th of December. But the next one that I'd like to discuss is Tough Mudder. Now Tough Mudder is unique, and I did my very first obstacle course race, that was Tough Mudder. And Tough Mudder obstacles are more fun, more adventurous, and it involves a lot of teamwork. And you can also use my promo code, which is George25, for a 25% discount. Now if you are into running, if you are into adventure, if you are into obstacle course race, you definitely need to sign up for this event. So go to the website toughmudderarabia.com, and you can also follow them on Instagram. The Instagram handle is toughmudderarabia. Now guys, let's talk about 2 news regarding UAE. Now I did cover this thing in my last week's session as well, but I just thought I'll just quickly give a recap of what the sessions are going to be. Now every month I do plan to have a session called as Bitcoin Beginner's Guide, and these sessions start on the 3rd of November till the 17th of November. So let me very briefly run through what the sessions are all about. So the Bitcoin Beginner's Guide session starts on the 3rd of November, the second is on the 10th of November, and the third one is on the 17th of November. Now all of these sessions take place from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Gulf Standard Time, and the initiative is to train, educate, and consult the people on Dubai on blockchain technology, which is purely in line with Dubai blockchain strategy. So let me very briefly run through what is it that I'm going to be discussing on the 3rd of November. Now on the 3rd of November, guys, I'm going to be talking about the history of Bitcoin, the projects that existed before Bitcoin, and prior problems with cryptocurrencies. So one of the biggest problems that Bitcoin actually solved was the double spend problem. So I'll try to explain what the double spend problem is and how Bitcoin actually solved the double spend problem. We'll also look at who Satoshi Nakamoto is, why he matters and why he does not. And we'll look at how Bitcoin actually works. So we look at what is it that goes into a block and what is it that's going to go into a chain. And guys, you need not worry, the sessions are going to be at a very basic and beginner level. So you do not need any technical expertise whatsoever. Now the session on the 10th of November, I'll be talking about BFT or Byzantine Fault Tolerance. We'll very briefly look at the Bitcoin white paper. We'll also talk about yesterday, that is the 31st of October, was the 14th year anniversary, and what are the general thoughts and assumptions of the Bitcoin white paper. We'll look at what is private key, what is public key, and what is SHA-256, that is secure hashing algorithm. And what I'll do, guys, I'll try to explain this at a very basic and beginner level, so no technical expertise whatsoever is needed. And when I talked about earlier that Bitcoin solved the double spend problem, so what Satoshi Nakamoto essentially did, he compiled 3 things, that is hashing algorithm, mathematics, and cryptography. So we'll very briefly look at that. We'll also look at how Bitcoin mining works and the halving of Bitcoin. And a few months ago, there was some drama going on regarding the halving of Bitcoin and if that would be preponed to 2023. And we'll try to differentiate between right information versus fake news. And we'll also look at how the Bitcoin mining difficulty works. So essentially every 2016th block, the Bitcoin mining difficulty gets adjusted. Now guys, you need not worry. These sessions are at a very basic and beginner level, so no technical expertise is needed whatsoever. And the final session that takes place on the 17th of November, we'll look at Bitcoin's market share. I'll try to explore and share my information on the different forks of Bitcoin. So you have Bitcoin Cash, you have Bitcoin Satoshi Vision, you have Bitcoin ABC, quite a lot more. We'll also talk about basics of Bitcoin Lightning Network and Liquid Network. And one thing which I've been saying quite often in my podcast is the narrative Lightning Network, not blockchain, is definitely growing, not just in the Bitcoin community, but also in the cryptocurrency community as well. So I'll try to explain at a very basic level what is Bitcoin's Lightning Network, what is Liquid Network, and quite a lot more. We'll also look at the different types of Bitcoin. We'll explore the different types of wallets, and we'll also look at the pillars of Bitcoin and open blockchain, which is popularized by Andreas Antonopoulos. And I will also share my experience on where you can buy, sell, and hodl Bitcoin. Now, when I was in Dubai in 2015, 2016, and 17, there used to be a website called as localbitcoins.com, which seemed to be working perfectly fine. But lately, that website cannot be accessed in UAE. So we'll still look at ways how you can buy, sell, and hodl Bitcoin. And we'll also explore the current and the future state of Bitcoin. And the second session, guys, which I have is on the 17th of November, which is called as Central Bank Digital Currencies. And it's so critical that we truly understand what central bank digital currencies are. And I'll try to explain the basics of CBDCs, the threats to freedom, and its role in the Metaverse, and quite a lot more. So the session on central bank digital currencies is essentially broken down into two parts. So in part A, we'll discuss what is central bank digital currencies or CBDCs. We will look at the history of CBDC, how will CBDCs actually work. We will look at the current state of CBDC, and India has already piloted the wholesale central bank digital currencies. And last week, we talked about how multiple CBDCs has been piloted, and UAE Central Bank is a part of the multiple CBDCs. So we look at who are the other banks that are part of multiple CBDCs, and what other countries are currently studying and working on CBDCs. We'll also talk about how El Salvador's move of making Bitcoin a legal tender did actually have an impact on IMF's stance on CBDCs, and we look at what are the future implications of that. Now, part B is my favorite, where I'll quickly compare central bank digital currencies with Bitcoin, and we will look at if central bank digital currencies are a threat to freedom, and we'll also look at the political implications. And guys, one theme which I've echoed in my podcast is when you talk about Bitcoin, freedom of speech, open source and cryptocurrencies, the right-wing politicians generally are in favor of Bitcoin, freedom of speech, open source and cryptocurrencies. The left-wing politicians and left-wing ideologies are not in favor of Bitcoin, are not in favor of freedom of speech and cryptocurrencies, and they are the ones who are in support of central bank digital currencies. So we're going to be discussing what political parties are in favor of CBDCs. As a matter of fact, in today's podcast also I talked about how the Reserve Bank of India is not in favor of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and they have pushed to central bank digital currencies. Now, is it possible because El Salvador made Bitcoin a legal tender, and they have this fear that other countries will start doing that, so may as well implement a central bank digital currencies? So we'll be talking about that. We'll also talk about China's role in central bank digital currencies. And what I'll do is I'll very briefly explain the different type of central bank digital currencies, that is wholesale CBDCs, which is piloted by the Reserve Bank of India in India today. And we will look at retail CBDCs, which India or the Reserve Bank of India plans to pilot later on in the month in a closed group. And we'll also look at multiple central bank digital currencies. But my favorite topic is central bank digital currencies' role in the Metaverse. Now guys, listen, I'm a massive advocate of Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and probably the whole Web 3.0 hype as well. But that being said, I do feel that central bank digital currencies play a much pivotal role and would be the most efficient and effective medium of payment and exchange in the Metaverse. And unfortunately, cryptocurrencies still have to tackle the whole blockchain trilemma problem. So I do feel that CBDCs will play a much better role in the Metaverse. So the session is completely free of cost, and if you do want to attend it, just check on Eventbrite or also drop me an email to info@blockchaindxb.com. So that's all for today, guys, on the Crypto and Coffee at 8 from Blockchain DXB. In case if you have any feedback or suggestions, please drop me an email to info@blockchaindxb.com, or check out my website, that is www.blockchaindxb.com, or also check out my website, that is area2071.com, that talks everything about Metaverse. And if you like listening to this podcast, please click on the follow button, give it a 5-star rating, and share the word across. Now for the next few minutes is going to be an Ask Me Anything series, where you listeners can ask any questions regarding Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi, and Metaverse. So let's kickstart with the Ask Me Anything series. Hey everyone, it's George from Blockchain DXB. You're listening to the Ask Me Anything series, where you listeners can ask any questions regarding Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi, and Metaverse. And how the series of episodes into Crypto and Coffee at 8 works is, we usually cover some top news and information pertaining to the price of cryptocurrencies, some major breaking news, occasionally short and sweet news as well, news that has an impact in the cryptocurrency world. The other two news and information is related to Dubai, UAE, and Middle East in the world of cryptocurrencies. And what you're listening to right now is the Ask Me Anything series, where you listeners can ask any questions from the cryptocurrency world. I have a question by Alex who asks, do you think countries will compete for being the world leader in central bank digital currencies? Now at this point of time, Alex, I know for a fact that China is definitely taking a lead so far as central bank digital currency is concerned, and China has been working on CBDC projects since 2014. So I do think that, China is definitely going to be competing with central bank digital currencies, and US is far behind China, but you need to have a mixture of opinion, because when you talk about central bank digital currencies, it does talk about a severe degree of centralization, and it does work on an autocratic style of adoption. So China is definitely taking the lead, but I really am not sure if that is something which a country would want to do, especially when you talk about freedom of speech, when you talk about an open cryptocurrency such as Bitcoin. So China is definitely taking the lead, but that does not necessarily mean, Alex, that that is a great thing. Because even if you look at India's central bank digital currencies, the Reserve Bank of India is trying to push for central bank digital currencies, and Reserve Bank of India is a massive detractor of Bitcoin and open cryptocurrencies and freedom of speech. So you have to have a mixture of opinion when you're talking about if a country is trying to be a leader in central bank digital currencies. Now personally, I would not want to be a part of a country which is trying to be a leader in central bank digital currencies. And we'll be discussing about this when we talk about the event that I have on the 17th of November, because when you talk about CBDCs, the government can actually the central bank at will can stop your transactions, can ban your account, can do quite a lot of other things. So when you're talking about, being a leader so far as CBDCs is concerned, I definitely don't think any country would want to do that. Now there are a couple of CBDCs that is in Norway. What they want to do is they do want to have the source code completely open. Now look, Alex, what I do think is if a country wants to make the central bank digital currency source code completely open, build it on open blockchain, and implement zero knowledge proof, they would take a massive lead in the cryptocurrency world. And generally when you talk about open cryptocurrencies and freedom of speech, that would be absolutely brilliant. But rather than doing that, you may as well adopt Bitcoin, and because Bitcoin does quite a lot of other things, and you can do your retail transactions using Lightning Network. For your wholesale CBDCs, you can work on something with Liquid Network, quite a lot more. So rather than focusing on central bank digital currencies, Alex, I do think a better form of payment and medium of exchange would be Bitcoin. I have another question by Neeraj who asks, are there particular events in Dubai and UAE that you would recommend? Because I'm visiting Dubai in the next few weeks. Now Neeraj, there are quite a lot of events which are taking place in Dubai. And what I've been noticing that Dubai is lately turning out to be a red ocean. That is, there is too much of competition in the cryptocurrencies, NFT, DeFi, Metaverse. Now that being said, Neeraj, I must say a lot of the events, the speakers are definitely not worthwhile to attend. There are only a couple of events that I can think of is worthwhile attending. If you go to meetup.com, there is a Bitcoin meetup event which I believe is conducted by a guy called Adam. And he's been doing that for a very long time. I haven't attended that, so I cannot tell you if it is good or bad. But that is one event if I were to visit Dubai for the very first time, and if I do want to attend, that would be the event that I would be very keen to attend. There is Crypto with Coffee, which every Saturdays they have a session at a beautiful location. Now, in that session, They do have some really good speakers. And what I really like about Crypto with Coffee is they focus on the technology as opposed to, pumping your product, or as opposed to just hyping or just shelling your product. So Crypto with Coffee, do check it out. There's a Hyperledger meetup, which I've heard is really good. They also focus a lot on the technology on Hyperledger. And there is Hedera Hashgraph. They tend to have a lot of sessions as well, which focuses more on technology. Now, when you talk about moving to Dubai in the next few weeks, Neeraj, there is also a speed networking event. I believe that is conducted every Wednesdays. So it's kind of similar to speed dating, but it kind of works on networking. So you essentially sit on a chair and you get to introduce yourself and listen to what the other person has to say. I believe the cutoff time is 30 seconds. Then you get up, switch your chair, and quite a lot more. It's somewhat similar to speed dating, but it's speed networking. So those are some of the sessions that I would recommend. And other than that, I do have a session every month, which is completely free of cost, and it's 100% virtual as well. So please feel free to attend that as well. And if you do want to meet up just for a cup of coffee or something, just drop me an email to info@blockchaindxb.com. So that's all for today, guys, on the Crypto and Coffee Update from Blockchain DXB. And in case you have any feedback or suggestions, please drop me an email to info@blockchaindxb.com and check out my website, that is www.blockchaindxb.com. And guys, also check out my other website, that is area2071.com, that talks everything about Metaverse. And if you like listening to this podcast, please click on the follow button, give it a 5-star rating, and share the word across. And remember, Monday to Thursdays, 8 a.m. to 8:30 a.m., we have Crypto and Coffee Update. We usually cover some top news and information pertaining to the price of cryptocurrencies, some major breaking news, occasionally short and sweet news as well, news that has an impact in the cryptocurrency world. The other two news and information is related to Dubai, UAE and Middle East in the world of Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi and Metaverse. And what you're listening to right now is the Ask Me Anything series, where you can ask any question from the cryptocurrency world. So thanks so much for listening, guys, and have a brilliant day ahead. Bye-bye.